Welcome to the Longest Take podcast. Thank you for tuning in to the Longest Take podcast. In today's episode, I'm joined by Daniel DelPurgatorio, an accomplished writer, director, animator who's worked on such shorts, The Tales of the Black Freighter, which was coupled with 2009's Watchmen by Zack Snyder, and more recently, the film Marshmallow, which is a horror sci-fi film that has recently gone on to VOD. So please be sure to check it out on Amazon and rent it digitally. Welcome, Daniel, to today's episode. All right, so first things first, what are your top 5 favorite movies?
Top 5 favorite movies. Alien, Jaws, Back to the Future trilogy as one movie. How many was that? 3? Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and Blue Velvet. Those are my top 5 that I watch a lot, too much.
Yeah,
I cheat. I put 3 Back to the Future movies in there as one, but I feel like, it's one story. So
yeah, I feel that. And sometimes, like, I'd say maybe my top 10 includes like the Dark Knight trilogy, and that I just lump into its own thing.
It has to, I feel like when they're 3 separate movies that are just like kind of different, but like some of them are so like they just go right into one another. I feel like that kind of, you have to sort of view it as one, as one thing, as it's meant to be,
Yeah, exactly. And I love the David Lynch inclusion there. I'm surprised you didn't say Eraserhead, because that's right behind you there, but Blue Velvet's good too.
Yeah, it's it's funny because anytime somebody asks like, what's your favorite, top 10, I feel like that's such a loaded question, and it depends where you are in your life. But I feel like the 5 that I've given range lots of years, but have also like impacted me in one way or another throughout my life. And I think that that's probably why, I think that they're the most relevant. I could list another, 50 right now.
Right. I mean, just listing like what you have pictures behind you of. I mean, there's a bunch of movies there too. So
yeah.
But my favorite out of those is probably Jaws. I do love Jaws.
Yeah. It's just such a good movie, and I still get scared watching it, and I still have the same feeling I had when I was a kid watching it. It's just damn awesome. It's just really cool. I think the stuff that I relate, personally, that I relate to is this, movies are very much like a documentary of time, right? And you watch a movie and you will always have that reaction based on where you are in your life. And it's cool to be able to watch movies that really still have that feel, you know what I mean? And Jaws is definitely one of them. I just remember first time seeing it and what I felt then, and I still harness that, which is cool.
Yeah, and I really like the way you described that, with it being kind of it captures time, and it's, I think also in the movie itself, it's capturing a time period. The way it's filmed, the year, you see it reflected in how they dress, how they talk, the cadence, all of that.
It's so cool too that the time was so different back then, and I feel that all of us older or slightly older film nerds, and we all really gravitate towards older films, right? More of these sort of classic films from the time period, because of how we felt and how we were living and how we were experiencing stuff growing up. And that's reflected in the movie. So we have a different connection. Whereas kids now, they relate to newer movies because they have a connection with that sort of thing. It's just a different time, movies are interesting how that works,
Yeah. And I'm curious to see how contemporary movies affect the kids of today and how they look back on it 20 years from now. Because you're still getting that same caliber of talent behind the camera and got some modern classics. So I can't wait to see kind of how that evolves, similarly to you and I and how we saw it.
What's funny is that, to that point, the other day I was talking to my buddy, I'm a huge Star Wars nerd also, which is surprising that I didn't put Star Wars or Indiana Jones in that collection, but I'm a huge Star Wars nerd, and we were talking about this sort of like resurfaced love of the prequels. And like, I'm an original trilogy guy, like, because that's what I grew up with, right? And I was like, oh, it's crazy. Like, I'm seeing like this new like outburst of people talking about the prequels like a lot, and like everybody's coming back from the prequels and is celebrating them now, even though when they were in them they didn't like the sort of outcry that happened with it, right? And my buddy's like, well, yeah, you have to remember, because when you watched the originals, you were young and you loved it. Now the kids that watched the prequels were young and they're now in their mid-20s or whatever. So they're experiencing it how we were experiencing, you know, the original. And I was like, oh yeah, it's interesting. That much time has passed, which you forget about, you know? And so, yeah, it's interesting to see like how all these new like cool ass films that are coming out, like the Hereditaries and, like Barbarian and all of these films, like how that's going to be in 20 years to kids that were younger that saw it, you know?
Right. And a little bit on that Star Wars note, I know there's a lot of discourse, especially nowadays, around the new trilogy, which I like 2 out of 3 of those, and I wonder if those are going to have like a resurgence of appreciation in a few years. Because right now it's like people mostly hate it, but I think even though it's a little disjointed once you get to the end of it, I feel like there's stuff you could appreciate out of them that with time you might see more appreciation.
Yeah, I feel that that's sort of the case with a lot of bigger things, you know, I'm curious to see what that's like, because it has surprised me, like, you know, and again, I saw the prequel movies, I saw every one of them in the theater like 10 plus times each, you know, and it's crazy for me now to see like, oh man, everybody's like so pro like prequels, and you didn't hear that for a while, you know, it was like a big deal, then it kind of like fell, and then it sort of, and you know, and that spawned the whole new thing with all the shows and everything. It's crazy.
Yeah, 100%. So we'll see how they do with the newest movies. I know they got Mandalorian and Grogu coming out, and yeah, we'll see if they try to go back to that whole, you know, like how they did with the Skywalker saga, if they try to capture lightning again or do something else. Yeah,
it's interesting. Like Andor, for example, like I love Andor. Like those are, I think for me personally, I'm like, this is some of the best Star Wars anything since the original trilogy. I think it was just the tone of it, the storytelling, visual, everything was just really cool. And it was nice to see something that was a little different than the prequel style, you know, execution, which again is cool for what it is. But I liked the tone. I was like, oh, this feels very Kubrick, like a Kubrick Star Wars, you know, like the music, everything. I was like, it's cool. And it's fun to see people's, you know, different filmmakers' interpretations of source material that they grew up with, you know. And we're in this world, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You make something that honors the originals and people get mad because you're just doing what was already done. You do something that's different, people get mad because you did something that's different, that's not honoring. So you're kind of like, it's, what do? You know what I mean? You can't make everybody happy, but you just got to, you know, go with your instinct, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And I agree. And I mean, that's why overall I'd say like I even enjoy current Star Wars. I don't always like what's being put out, but I like seeing different people kind of play with the IP a little bit. Cause you know, there's always something, I think, and this goes for most things, there's always something you could take away from it that you're like, okay, that was actually pretty decent.
Yeah. And I think like movies in general, like people forget this, especially now with the current like social climate, right? Like how we have all this technology at our fingertips. It's easy to forget that every movie or TV show or piece of art or band or music is a victory in itself, because it takes somebody to do something or a group of people to do something and create it. And like, if a movie comes out, that's a victory. Somebody did it. And it may not be your sensibility, right? Or it may not be connecting with you based on where you're at in your life. That's okay. And it may for somebody else. And like the more of that happens, the better it is for all of us, because we're getting more and more content and cool shit. You know what I mean? And it's also a reminder to studios and like money people that like, oh, there is a need and a want for it. And I think people always, it's easier to put things down and brush it under the rug, but they forget that hurts the bigger picture in general. Like, we need to all be out celebrating anything and everything, because we'll get more of it if we do, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's important to note that, and also acknowledge that, you know, even with the big studio movies, there are thousands of people working on it. And it's like, I talked to somebody before who is a part of the prop making process. She's not a prop master or whatever, but she's a part of, like, essentially the company that makes them, puts them together. And just hearing that person on this small part of the process having this love and desire to do it, it puts into perspective that, like, okay, there's so many people here that want to be here and that want it to succeed. They want to be a part of it. And it's just, I think there's something fragile about that goes underappreciated sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, honestly, at the end, like, nobody wants to make bad anything. Like, nobody wants to do a bad painting or make a shitty song or a bad movie. Like, that's not the intention. Sometimes things happen, or sometimes there's limitations on whatever you're doing. But again, when you celebrate that, it helps pull everybody up, from the lowest person that was working on it to the person at the top. And again, we get the opportunity to hopefully do it again and fix the things that didn't work in what you wrote or what you painted or what you played. And yeah, people forget. I think a lot of people forget that. It's easy to forget that. You see something, you get mad, like, oh, I didn't like that at all. That's easy first reaction. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's hard to, I guess, now, because everything is so fast and so immediate. It's hard to, like, pump the brakes, you know? Yeah, I think we're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it for sure. You know?
Right. And it's so fast moving, and that includes the discourse around things when they're released. You have YouTube, where the second someone watches something, boom, they're posting what they feel about it online. And then immediately it's just like, you get this discourse that rises, or you get this, whether or not something's going to succeed or fail by, like, that first moment of these reactions going live sometimes.
Isn't it crazy that like that can determine the fate of any piece of art or whatever? Like anything, like good or bad, like when it goes out there, like one person could starts traffic, right? And like that will determine how something is going to do. It's crazy, because back in the day, like I would always joke with my friends, I'm like, back in the day, we'd go see a band and you would see like an opening act that you never heard of, some random band. And you're like, these guys are badass. And you would buy a shirt and a CD, and random people would ask you, what is that? And you tell them, oh, I saw them with this band. And you only heard about it through word of mouth. You couldn't go on the internet. You couldn't find things, or you'd find it at a record store randomly. So there was a bit more of this, like, seeking things out. And there was an excitement to that when you found something that was, like, off the regular, like on the beaten path, right? And it was like an interest. And then you tell your friends, and your friends like it, and you start to grow this, like, organic thing. It's very different now for everything, and it's crazy, like, especially having kids, and this, like, growing up in a world that is so different than when we were kids. And obviously you want to adapt, and you have to change with the times, but there's a lot of really great stuff, and I think a lot of bad stuff, and like, how do we balance that as fans of content and creators? And very interesting, just very interesting times.
Yeah. And I think it's important to just continue to champion good stuff that, like, that means something, that
100%.
So a good portion of your filmography began with animation. So, like I read here, title sequence of Mr. Megorium, your co-director effort with Tales of the Black Freighter, animation director for 2009's Paperman, which I didn't even know was a movie until I was like looking at your IMDb.
Yeah.
So what was Yeah. And Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds. Yeah. I was like, I'm surprised I didn't hear of this one. What was your introduction in animation, and what motivated you to pick projects such as those that I listed?
So I went to school for illustration, to college for illustration. Like, I grew up, I always loved music and movies and art. And so when I was young, I wanted to do illustration. So I went to college for illustration. And when I was in college, I was like, oh, I want to go to film school for grad school for film. So I applied to grad school, and then I also applied for a job at an animation studio, and I ended up getting the job. And I was like, well, I could go to school and learn, and pay to learn, or I could get paid and learn. I ended up taking this job at an animation studio. And an artist that I grew up loving had gone there as well and had taught there. And so I was like, oh shit, this is amazing. Or sorry, that he worked at the company. He went to my school when I was, before me, and he was now at this company. And so I was like, oh, this is badass. So I went to the studio and started doing storyboards and concept art. And eventually, and this is all in the commercial world, not on the entertainment side. And I started to just I loved it. And I started to lie and be like, oh yeah, I could animate this commercial, or I could do this. And they're like, okay. And they started throwing me projects. I'm like, shit, I got to teach myself how to animate. And so I started jumping in and learning stuff on the fly. I'd get home from work and jump into After Effects. And this is when Photoshop just started to become a thing and After Effects just started becoming a thing. And yeah, just kind of taught myself. And fortunately, I was around really talented people, and we were all the same kinds of dorks. We all loved Spielberg movies, and we all loved just film and doing punk rock, the punk rock music and DIY stuff. And we all just sort of started working together, and that just got me into animation. And so Megorium and Paperman, that was through work. We met, we had salespeople that worked at our company, and we'd pitch on these projects oh, we want to do title sequences, and we'd meet directors and producers and we'd pitch on it. And so that's how we got those. And Black Freighter was a similar thing. I was on a sales trip with one of the producer or executive producers at the company, and we were there talking with some execs for another project, and they were shooting Watchmen, the film at the time. And I, saw that there was a script on this guy's desk, and it was a Black Freighter script. And I was like, oh shit. I'm like, hey, sorry to be a nerd. Are you guys making this movie? And he's like, yeah, we're going to do it. But it's a secondary thing. So we went back to our studio, and we got the team together, and we're like, hey, let's fucking put a pitch together. And it was just a bunch of illustration and animation guys and girls. We just got together, we started drawing, doing tests, and we put a presentation together and went back out there to present. And he was like, oh okay. And we showed it to him, and he was like, oh, this is fucking awesome. You guys got to go meet Zach. And they flew us up, and we met Zach the next day on the set of the Watchmen film, and they gave us the job, which was cool. So it was just that was kind of the punk rock DIY aesthetic, right? Where it was, you kind of make your way in the world by going outside of the box and, just doing the stuff that you love doing with the people, more importantly, with the people that you love working with. And yeah, so that's sort of how I fell into animation. And all the while I loved movies. I've always loved films. So a handful of years later, me and my friends, we were like, hey, let's make a movie. Let's start doing stuff. We were doing a bunch of commercial work, and we're like, let's do something completely different. And started writing our short films, and we'd finance them ourselves, and we'd make stuff, and then we'd go to festivals and meet other people. And then we'd start all working together. And then the group just started to grow, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that story about the Black Freighter, because I don't know, I feel like you don't hear that as much nowadays, where people are getting gigs like that. Everything nowadays kind of feels a little bit more, I don't know, more official, in the sense of it's calculated. Yeah, it's processed. But I do want to ask, since you just released a feature recently, do you feel that there is still some of that element to filmmaking today? Maybe if you haven't personally experienced it, but is there still that element of DIY in big stuff that's being put out there?
Yeah, I think so. More so on the independent side. But then you have studios like A24 and Neon, and I think that they I don't say the other studios aren't doing it, but those guys are leaning into more of the DIY thing, in the sense that they're finding directors and writers and talent and letting them kind of run, you know what I mean? And I think that that's like a sort of DIY thing, right? Like you have to be you do stuff outside of the box. And it goes back to like the John Hughes of it, where John Hughes was in LA making all his movies. And he's like, you know what, fuck it. I'm moving to Chicago and I'm going to just start making movies outside and just doing my thing. That was total DIY, you know? We like everyone's like, you can't do that. That's not the way that we do it. And he did it, and he just made some classics, you know, that everybody still loves because he was sort of he's a little bit more naive about it, right? And doing things, and I think that that's really important, you know, and being flexible. Obviously, making movies is your problem solving. That's all you're doing is problem solving, and you're being flexible when things don't go right, because they won't. And I think that's the DIY attitude of like, you know, making photocopies at the Kinko's from back in the day and pasting things up and getting your hands dirty, and you sort of jump around. And again, you find a lot of people that have the same sensibilities that can sort of move around. And I think that's exciting for me. Like I love guerrilla style anything. I just love getting my hands dirty, and I love, like, all my friends are like that as well. And there's just something more satisfying because like at the end of the project, you can celebrate it knowing that you were doing all of these different things that you wouldn't have normally done, you know? And everybody always talks about this, like lots of money is great to make something, any kind of art. Sure, it's awesome. But when you have less of it, you have to come up with different ideas and different solutions. And sometimes that's when things are really good. Like we talked about Jaws, like that first shot where you see Jaws, you remember where like it pushes in, you barely see it, and you have the reaction. Like that all stemmed from not having a good shot reveal of Jaws, and it made that scene fucking iconic, right? And like that's the perfect example of like leaning into that aspect of thinking outside of the box and doing things differently, and then celebrating it on the back end. So
yeah, and another thing with Jaws, with just kind of, I guess, winging it when things aren't going that great, is the whole the floating barrels. It's because the shark wasn't working.
Yep.
But that worked because it's even scarier when you don't fully see him, but you know he's coming.
Oh, yes, so cool. And it's like, and that's I think when you have a lot of money, you get comfortable with we can solve it blank. Whether that means in post, we could solve it here, we could solve it here, we could reshoot it. Like you fall into, we'll solve it later. We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Right.
When you don't have the money, you're making immediate decisions, and you're doing something that maybe you wouldn't have done otherwise. And that's, I think, what keeps art exciting. And some of the best art that we get as people that consume it is the stuff where people are thinking outside the box.
Yeah, in guerrilla filmmaking, one of my favorite things too, and Werner Herzog, one of my favorite, maybe my favorite director. His movies aren't in my top 5 at least. I love his movies, but just as a director, I love it. I love hearing him talk about how he's done stuff. That's like the poster child for guerrilla filmmaking right there.
100%. And you know what's funny is that like every director that has started, you know, in that kind of guerrilla style, and some are still in it, not everybody, but like you could feel the thumbprint of the artist. And I think that that's really important. Like, sure, there's a bunch of movies, you could tell it's a work for hire, whatever, writer, actor, director. They get the job done. It's really good, but it doesn't have like a thumbprint. And like you talk, like you could see his thumbprint. Michel Gondry, I mentioned Eternal Sunshine. I love it because I know that that's his movie because I could see it, I could feel it. Spielberg, especially early Spielberg, like you could feel the thumbprint. Like it's really, and that's special because it's something beyond. Like you could feel excitement and energy and DIY aesthetic in movies when people put it in, and you could feel when it's a little bit more manufactured and there's more money, you know. It's two, you know, not saying one's right or wrong, it's just two very, very unique aesthetics, you know. Yeah,
absolutely. So I've got a list of some of your shorts here. So Bodies, Other, Bug Bites. Throughout the years, you've directed some of these short films, usually of horror and sci-fi variety. No spoilers for Marshmallow, but you seem partial to the horror sci-fi realm. What gravitates you towards these types of stories? It looks like most, if not all of these shorts were entered into the festival circuit as well, like POF or POFF the is it Estonian or something? I'm
Yeah,
not. Yeah. How do you feel the festival circuit treated these projects, and did any of these runs help you get that next step towards like Marshmallow? I know I loaded question. I had like 3 different questions there,
yeah,
but
yeah. No, I think for me, I love horror. Like I love horror films. Again, I think every horror person you talk to probably says the same thing. Hey, I saw these movies when I was way too young, and it hooked me. Happened with
Right.
me, just like everybody else. You know, I watched the original Mad Max, Friday the 13th Part 2, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They were all on one cassette tape my dad had. And I watched it, and I was too young, and those all have stuck with me and got me into this genre. And Mad Max obviously has the sci-fi dystopian element to it. You know, Friday the 13th and Texas Chainsaw are very horror related. But something for me was special was like I didn't know movies could make you feel that way. And so like, you know, I was watching, you know, E.T., which I love, and Goonies. And then I also had this on the other side. So I, you know, when I got introduced to Lynch and Cronenberg and Ken Russell, I started going like, oh shit, like these guys are sort of combining both of these things that I love that are 2 very different things in a very unique way. And that got me really excited about, you know, mixing things up. And so a lot of the shorts that I have, I just like them because not only does it allow me to play in lots of different areas and genres, it allows all of the people that work on it to do the same. And I think that any movie that you work on, you want to make sure everybody's excited about it and everybody gets something out of it. Like I'm not a fan when it's like a film by blank. I think that doesn't give credit to everybody else that's working on the movie. Like a movie is only what it is because of the entire list, right? And so like a lot of the films that I started to do and work on, like I would have an idea or a friend would have an idea, we start to put together, and then we would just start to bring other people in and make, you know, we always want to make sure that they're getting something out of it. Like production designer, like what, you know, this is what I'm thinking, what would be exciting for you? Costume designer, what would be exciting for you? And things evolve that way. Which is, I think, probably why like I lean into that stuff. And so like we'd make these films and, you know, we'd start to go to festivals, which was really cool. And we'd get into, you know, really amazing festivals. And it's awesome. As a short film, it's cool to play because you know, you'll play in a block with films most of the time, or sometimes you'll open up for like a feature. But you get to see all the cool shit that other people are making that is just so different, right? And you meet people. And like for me, that was the biggest thing, especially when you make a short, like it's fun, it's great, it's really cool, but like the features are usually the bigger thing at a festival because obviously it's just a whole different world. But for me, what was always exciting was meeting people. And that's, I've met some of my best friends and people that I work with now going to festivals. And so to your last question, I had one of my film's bodies that we made, we were playing at a festival. And in this case, the movie was opening for another film, a feature. And I ended up meeting Warner, who produced Marshmallow. He produced the film after. And we just like hit it off. We started talking, we became friends. And we just kept in touch for years. This was in like 2016, maybe. So a while ago. And so like we just became friends, and he had some films and I did some effects on, and we just have always been in touch. And Marshmallow came through and he's like, hey, I got this project. I think it falls in the Danny category. Would you be interested in taking a look? And I did, and it just worked out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's crazy how kind of, especially in this industry, one thing leads to another. And I'm just hoping that whatever you do next, it's still within the realm of horror sci-fi a little bit. But speaking of Marshmallow, so the first thing that I thought of when I saw the poster for it was the poster of The Thing. Did that play into the design for the antagonists of this film?
It did not play into the look of our doctor character in the movie, but it did play into it for the poster.
Okay.
Yeah. So like when we shot the film, we were designing it, and our costume designer had like lots of great ideas. I pulled some references, she pulled references, and we ended up with a look that's very specific based on what happens in the movie, which I won't give any spoilers away, but like every part of it is very specific of why it's designed. And we shot a scene in the film, which is like one of our promo stills where the doctor's like standing and the trees are behind him. And that look inspired the poster. And so like, we're like, oh, it'd be really cool to do, you know, something with that like silhouette. Like, and that's what we wanted. We wanted a character that had a cool silhouette. And so we're like, oh, well, obviously let's play homage to some of our favorite films. Like we wanted like a cool vibe and a tone. And that thing poster is amazing. It's nothing to do with the movie, you know, like
I was going to say, yeah,
it just looked badass. It's a great, like he's made some of the best posters ever. And so we're like, well, we have a really cool, you know, silhouette of our character, and you know, the light is, it's all there. Like we're not changing it just for the poster. So it sort of played into it. And yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's something cool to take away from that. The fact that the Thing poster, nothing like the actual monster in the movie. But yours, like it's exact, like that's what you're getting, right?
Yeah. Which is really funny, because people will ask me that, and it'll be like, yeah, it's definitely leads into that for, you know, because it's fun, and we see how every movie does that kind of thing. However, it is very relevant to the movie because it is the characters, and there is a specific reason, tagline, specific reason why they're stacked. Everything about it has a purpose. You know what I mean? It just happens to, you know, play with again, one of our favorite films. That's amazing.
And man, I wish John Carpenter will make another movie. I didn't like The Ward. I think it was The Ward, but if he were to do it again, I think he'll kill it, whatever he wants to make. Give him all the money, you know.
He what did I see? He's scoring a film right now, right? I feel like I read that he was actually doing the score for a film, and I was just like, fuck, that's awesome. And I can't remember what it is, and I'm gonna look it up after. I'm
gonna look it up, because I felt like his music, sometimes even on Spotify, you'll get a post of his where he's just, you know, him. I think with one of his kids too, or someone in his family, I think also does music. And
they're doing that amazing festival, which sucks it's in LA, you know, we're not going, but with all of film composers, which is so cool. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
Oh yeah, look it up. I mean, I think Trent Reznor and Atticus are putting it on, but it's got like John Carpenter, it's got Danny Elfman, it's got they're doing Trent Reznor and Atticus are doing something like it's loaded with like phenomenal composers. It's so cool, and it's the first time I mean obviously this has never been done before, really, so it's gonna be really cool to hear how that goes.
I wish that was happening around here.
I know, and you know, it'll sell out, like if it hasn't already. It's gonna be just, and I read a really great, they were just talking about the intention of it, and it's like, this is like a festival to like, for you to experience an emotional experience, not just like, hey, I'm gonna go watch a bunch of cool bands play and it's gonna change throughout the day and you're gonna see all these cool, like it's supposed to be like a ethereal, encompassing, you know, thing. It's just a killer idea.
Oh man, I really wish I could go to that. We get Lollapalooza, why can't we get this, you know?
Well, my guess is what'll happen, it'll be successful based on just from what I could see. I'm hoping that maybe it'll be like a Lollapalooza Riot Fest type thing where it'll be in select locations. I mean, Lolla doesn't do that anymore, but Riot Fest did for a while. They had a couple, but I'm hoping that they'll do like a couple of like pop-ups, like maybe it'll be like handful of major cities, you know?
Hopefully that'd be amazing.
So cool. Goblin playing it as well, which is awesome.
Who was that?
A Goblin is playing as well. So cool.
That's awesome. I love like office and workplace genre films, like the Belko Experiment or even Mayhem. So I noticed on your IMDb that you have a movie called Cubicle. It shows that the script is like, that's where the process is. It's a script stage, and it has Jocelyn Donahue attached. So I was just wondering if any of that's even accurate, and if there's anything you could really talk about with this project.
So Cubicle was a film from a while ago that it's an amazing script. It's really, really good. Everything about it is really cool. And I had an amazing producer I worked with for a long time, and it's just one of those. It was just in development constantly with finding money, resources, location, whatever. And yes, Jocelyn read the script. She was great. She signed on to do it. We had a couple of other people that were signed on to do it as well. And it's just one of those like unfortunate, cursed projects that every time something good happened, something else happened. And so it was like a one step forward, two steps back type deal. And just nothing happened with it. And maybe something will. I hope. It's a great script. And Jocelyn's amazing. Like she had so many fantastic ideas for the film, and I love her as an actress and as a person. And yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully, because I mean, just reading it sounds awesome. But I was wondering too, when you say like how it's cursed, does it all revolve around finances, or is it like scheduling and these other things that just kind of these hurdles that come in the way of it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I say cursed because that kind of ties to the movie. Like I would always joke with my producer, be like, "Oh yeah, like the script," but it was always like scheduling, like, oh, we want this person to work on it. Great, but I can only do it here. It's like, okay, so we'll shift it. Like this person when is unavailable. Oh, first money came in. Great. Then second money came in. First money's gone. Like it was always like one thing happened that would lead to something else. And it was just like it was like a chess game, like moving things around and going like, I'm going to move here. I think this is the right move. And going like, oh shit, that maybe that wasn't the right move. Or yeah, it was just, and I feel, every filmmaker and or independent filmmaker has worked in this industry has experienced, the development hell, where it's like, it just gets into the mix, right? And it just kind of goes in a circle. I always say it's like a laundry, like a washing machine. It's like you're just watching the clothes spin around in a circle, and it's like, is it going to stop? And that was one of them, and it's just crazy.
Yeah.
But as we know, like you said it earlier, it all depends on like timing, meeting somebody at a specific time, like, and that's just how it happens. And sometimes it clicks and sometimes it doesn't. So you sort of always have to have like multiple things brewing, because when you think this is hot and ready to go, like tomorrow, it's the random thing over here that jumps up and becomes a thing. So it took a while. I think for probably every artist, it takes a while because you get very attached to things and very hyper focused on stuff, and you forget to slow down and to make sure that you're always brewing and coming up with things all over the place and keeping yourself a little bit more open and not so guarded on one thing. And when you start to do that, you find more opportunity because you meet somebody and they have something, or you have something that they want help with. So yeah, it's a weird industry for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, fingers crossed that it eventually gets made, because I'm interested. I'll be there day one.
Awesome.
So with directing, what are some of the strongest challenges that you face, and how does directing like a predominant group of younger folks compare to adults? Because I mean, if anybody here has watched Marshmallow, a big focus of it is the kids at a camp, right? So just kind of.
Yeah. Directing in general, is anything really, where I always say, surround yourself with people that are better than you at everything. And so as a director, the goal is to, fill every role with people that are better than you. I can confidently say that every project that I've ever worked on, that's been the case. Everybody that I've had the opportunity to work with is really, really good. And I want them to do what they're good at. Obviously, I'm there to help make sure the ship gets to the island, right? I'm steering it, but I want everybody to have an input and a voice and feel like they're getting something out of it. So that's the hardest part, I think, is just making sure that everybody trusts in your vision or your approach to whatever you're making. And then being flexible, being able to problem solve, on the fly. And it's hard, it really is, but everything starts at the top, from the producers and the director, and the tone of a production is going to be how those people operate, right? And if you're able to sort of take the punches and figure things out and keep up the positivity and the excitement and everything, it trickles down, right? And fortunately for me, when working on Marshmallow, like Warner and Todd, the producers on the film, were both like that. They were really, really great. They solved anything that came up without a concern, which was awesome, and that trickles down. And for me, like when the film came, I read the script and I liked it because I related on two levels. Like in the movie, there's a split in the center, but the first part of it I related to because I'm like, oh, this reminds me of a time when I was a kid, and I really love that. And this would have been something I would have wanted to see when I was a kid. And then another portion of it I was able to relate to as an adult, I put that in quotes, as an adult with children. And I related it connected with me for that reason. So I like the idea that it had something for everybody, So I read the script, I really liked it. And then I was like, yeah, we're going to make it. Cool. Awesome. We started looking at locations, and then I was like, oh shit, we're making a movie that's all at night with kids and water, lots of water and effects and all of this stuff. And I'm like, oh man, like we've almost checked everything off where people say not to do. And then we started to do casting, and when I started to see the kids the young adults, I should say, that we ended up casting in the film. And you got to remember, these kids were all 11, right? Yeah. 11 years old, 12, like crazy. They were phenomenal. I was just blown away. And we would see them and I'm like, all right. And like, we did a group session with all of them. They all hit it off. I hit it off with them. I got to meet all their parents, and before they took the roles, I wanted their parents to feel comfortable with me as a person, as a director. And so this whole vibe just worked really well. And so the toughest challenge with kids, really, it was not them being able to do the job, because they were all so damn good. Like they would punch each other in the crotch, throwing food at each other, being 11 and 12-year-olds, and we'd call action and they button up and they jump right in, and they would run full scene, start to finish, 5-minute takes with adults. And it was awesome. The hardest part, though, was that they had limited hours in the day that they could shoot. Right. And they had to stop shooting at a certain time. Like I think they had a wrap on weekdays at 10 o'clock, and it got dark at 9:30 at night. And our whole movie was at night. So like that was the most juggling stuff that we had to do and that was the hardest part, really, was just like preparing the days to work within their schedule and to make sure that we got the coverage that we needed. And, we'd have to split scenes up and shoot some of it, like shooting half of it looking one way where we're seeing outside, and then go shoot other stuff and come back to shoot the other way. It was like a lot of stuff, but everyone did great. And that was the hardest. Honestly, that's the hardest part. But we had a great AD that helped facilitate that. I don't know how he facilitated all of that stuff and kept it all on track. And we made our nights, and yeah, it's crazy. And independent movies, you don't have a lot of days to shoot this stuff. Like we had,
right.
We didn't have a lot of shooting days, and we didn't have a lot of hours at night. So it was, like I said, everything is a victory for me. Like when we got done and wrapped, we're like, damn, we shot everything. We didn't throw pages away. We didn't they didn't cut things back, and that, again, I was like, oh, that's a victory. Like I feel like we had a little victory right there. So
yeah, every movie is a victory. And the lead in particular, just this one sequence that was in the trailer, and I loved it because the practical effect element, but when he's having the dream and the water's coming out of his stomach, I'm just like, and he does a lot of stuff in the water too. So that, what a rock star to kind of, be performing in all of that. That's great.
It was, that role is like, as a character, the role itself goes through so many different layers, right? And then there's the physicality of it, which is a whole other thing. And like it's insane. I am blown away by every kid that worked on that film, how they rolled and rocked with it. Really, really cool. And they all became friends immediately on set. So like they hit it off, and as we kept filming, they became closer and closer, and like what you see is real. You know what I mean? It's like, really, it was fun. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, because that natural chemistry, I mean, you see it in the movie when they interact with each other. You know, there's an authenticity to that. I love it.
Yeah, just like it's funny because like the tagline that we had as a group working on the film was "Growing up is weird," and it's so true because like why I like the movie was like it's a coming of age story first and foremost. Really, not only like the first part of it is a coming of age story, but the whole movie, like once you get to the end of it, you realize, oh, it is a coming of age story for other reasons. And the idea of growing up is weird is relevant because you never stop growing up, right? Like I'm an adult now, right, with kids, and I'm still trying to find myself in the world, and I'm still trying to find where I fit in and how I fit in and the people that I fit in with. And like I remember it as a kid struggling and like finding people that I loved, finding people that I didn't get along with, like trying to be cool, like there's always something, right? And that's what's cool for me about the film is that like you have to go on a journey with a kid and relive some of that stuff, and then when the movie takes off in a different direction, it's more earned. And that goes to like the social aspect of things nowadays. Like people, like it's crazy how like when you craft films and art and music, like like how you cater towards the world that we're in. When you look at the old films, like there's a certain way that you do it, and there's just an investment that you put into the experience, right? And I love that. Like I love movies that do that, and I think there was part of that here. We wanted to live with this really great, kid and a fantastic actor, to feel that the celebration at the end is earned,
Yeah, and I love hearing those stories too, because especially like I mean I love the movie, but like I go and I rewatch it, just hearing that background stuff for me it makes the experience even better. I'm watching this take place and I'm thinking about all that genuine heart that went behind it, and it makes me appreciate it more.
Yeah, what's interesting too is like in the film, like what I liked, what Andy wrote, it was everything is so specific and like it's very purposeful. Every scene and line of dialogue is very purposeful. So when you get to the end, you're like, oh shit. So if you watch it again, you're like, oh, okay, like, oh, that's why they're standing like that. That's why they're saying that. That's why this is here. And even with like the very end, like there's a twist, right? And the whole movie, the entire movie is building for a very specific short moment.
Yeah.
It's the movie, you know what I mean? And it's like it's interesting. And it's again, I like those kind of films where you find like these little Easter eggs and you watch things like, oh damn, I didn't pick that up, or I didn't see that. And I had a buddy of mine and he's like, oh, I watched the film again, and he's like, this part was like, he like started like listing stuff to me, and I was like, oh cool, you like are seeing things from a different like set of eyes, and it's fun to watch a movie with a different perspective and get a different return at the end of it,
Yeah, and I can imagine that that's probably one of the more, at least I would think one of the more rewarding elements of being a filmmaker is just having that kind of perspective on something that you created, because I think it builds more longevity that way. It gives people a reason to return to it.
Yeah.
And just as a director, I mean, that must feel pretty phenomenal.
It's as an artist, as I mean, you're creating art too, like, right? Like as an artist, it's like you make stuff and you put it out in the world, and it's like we said earlier, it's like people relate to stuff or react to stuff one way or another, good or bad, based on everything that's going on in their life. And it's cool because you get a reaction, And if it's a good reaction, that's amazing. If it's a bad reaction, still amazing because you did something that somebody reacted to. And it's just, it's art. That's the point of art, right? Not everybody likes every single thing, right? We all have very different tastes, but that's cool. That's what's cool about it. You make something that you feel connected to, and you hope a lot of people connect to it, but if not, that's how it is. It's cool.
On to the next one, right?
So, it's exciting. It's exciting. And, now more than ever, there's so much stuff out there, which is so cool. It's crazy.
Yeah. So do you have a dream project that you would love to direct? And that could be either way. It could be like a dream project in the sense of maybe who you cast in it, or a dream project as to the type of story you'd like to tell.
I love anything, all of my movies, very different, but they're all very driven around human struggle, some kind of a struggle. Every single one of my movies, it's funny. It ends up being a theme, but I like that because I think people are the scariest monster out there. Right. And I think that we can all relate to somebody struggling internally and externally. And I just like that stuff because I feel that when you find an actor or an actress that can portray that, it's special. And speaking of actors or actresses, Michael Shannon, for example, I love him. He's a fantastic actor. And he's somebody that again, feels effortless in most of his performances. I remember watching The Master and Joaquin Phoenix in that movie. I remember I left and the first thing I said was damn, it just, I don't know how he captured that. He just was a different person. And that's it. I think that's just so cool how performers can dig that up. And so for me, that's what's exciting and is a dream of finding people that can connect to the art, right? Or a story and can do their thing. And then you just hope that you're there to, hit record.
Yeah. Hell yeah. And hopefully, will it into existence? Hopefully you could get Michael Shannon or even Joaquin Phoenix in a movie one day.
Sold. I was walking in Chicago, and you're from Chicago also, that we were walking, me and my buddy were walking, and Michael Shannon, we would always randomly see him. Oh, there he is on the train, or there he is walking down the street.
He lives in Chicago?
Yeah.
He does? No way.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I assumed because a lot of his movies are in the sticks somewhere. I assumed he was out west.
I don't know if he's here full time now, but he's a Chicago guy. And I would randomly get a text. My buddy would be at the, at a bar, at a blues bar, and Michael Shannon's up there playing guitar. And I'm just fuck, so cool. So yes, I'm just gonna maybe he'll feel oh, it's a Chicago guy. I feel I have to do this. So willing it. Yeah, that's the dream.
And he, side note, he deserved an Oscar for Take Shelter. I think that might be my favorite performance of his.
I love that movie so much. Also, speaking of Herzog, he did My Son, What Have You Done? Have you seen that?
Is that the one that Michael Shannon directed recently?
No, he was in it, and Herzog directed it.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. A little further back.
Yeah. It's such a weird movie, but I love it. It's really great.
Is Herzog the dad in that one, or he just directed it?
He just directed it.
He didn't star in it.
Yeah, no, it's a weird, very weird, bizarre movie, but yeah, it's really, really cool. It's very guerrilla style, bizarre. Yeah, it's cool though.
Did you see that other movie he did with Herzog? I think it might have been around the volcanoes or something in the desert. I forgot what it's called, but I'm pretty sure that was another Michael Shannon, Werner Herzog thing.
Really? No, I don't think I have.
Maybe. I don't know. I think they did work again maybe a few years ago.
Oh,
less than 10 years ago, possibly. Because it's funny because when he does these movies, sometimes he'll do a documentary, and then just while he's in the area, he'll just shoot a fiction film.
I know. I love it. Yeah.
And that's very guerrilla of him. He's just utilizing what he has.
Yeah. That's that film, My Son, is kind of like that. It feels like maybe it was between bigger films. I just want to see what year that was in. 2009.
My Son, My Son.
Yeah, 2009. Again, it's a I don't know. I don't ever hear anybody talking about it really, and I don't know how loved it is, but it's so just bizarre and different. And there was a couple really cool moments in there that have stuck with me. That yeah.
In 2016, he did Salt and Fire with Michael Shannon and Gail Garcia Bernal.
Oh,
Monica Ferris, and it was the same year that he was doing Into the Fire, his little volcano documentary.
Yeah, okay. I did not see that, but I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. I have like a set back here, one of his Blu-ray sets. I love Herzog. I could talk forever about him, but
it's amazing.
So I like to bookend these interviews with the same question, just like how I started. But where do you see yourself professionally or personally in 5 years from now?
5 years from now, hopefully I still get to make movies. I'd love to do that. And maybe I have a pizza shop, a pizza restaurant. Yeah, that's my, so obviously I work in commercial. I do a lot of commercial stuff as well. And so I think like, if I'm ever out of this industry, and I don't get to make movies or don't get to make commercials or do advertising, maybe I'll just open a pizza shop. It was a floral shop for a really long time. I like doing floral arrangements. So either a floral shop or a pizza shop. That's it.
Yeah. Would you do like a movie themed pizza shop? Just dive into the,
it's really funny. I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday, and we were just talking about like random stuff. And he's like changing industries. Like he doesn't work in my industry, but he's like changing industries. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I was like sitting down, really trying to figure out like what are the things that I love." And he's like, "What do you like?" And I was like, "I was like horror movies." And I started thinking, I'm like, "Oh, would I do a themed like pizza place?" You know what I mean? Like lean into it. Like they have that the Brood, which is like is that what it's called? The Brood? It's like a horror coffee shop.
They do like, trivia every week, I think.
Fucking genius. It's like super cool. I'm like, oh, why didn't I think of that? So like maybe there'll be a horror themed pizza shop. I don't know. Or it'll just be called DelPurgatorio's because it sounds like a, nice Sicilian, Italian, restaurant. We'll see.
So that's your actual last name, DelPurgatorio?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. That's like the coolest last name I think I've ever heard.
It's so funny because like I will always like randomly hear, like I've had clients that I've worked with for years and like they'll say like, "Hey, so what's your real last name?" I'm like, DelPurgatorio. And or somebody will like comment on a film that we've worked on. They're like, "Oh, DelPurgatorio, like that's like on the nose. That's an on the nose name for a horror director." I'm like, "It's my fucking
that's your actual name."
Yeah. It's just like it's my last name. So yeah. I always, anytime I go somewhere, like if somebody sees my last name, like when you're like checking out or whatever at the bank, everyone will always be like, "Do you know what that means? Do you know what that means?" And I'm like, "No, what does it mean?" And it means heaven and hell. And I'm like, oh. Yeah. It's like, so I always engage with that when people ask me if I know what my last name means. It's funny.
Yeah. You're destined to be a director because eventually people are going to love seeing that on a marquee, just DelPurgatorio,
good stage name. Yeah. It's great. My friends, they went to Italy and they took some photos and they came back. This was years ago, and it was a building, and it just had DelPurgatorio on it, which I thought was really cool. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's so sweet. Great.
Yeah.
So also, thank you for talking with me. Before I get you out of here, what is there for you to plug? I know you got your movie that recently came out on VOD. Just gonna give you the floor here to just kind of plug anything, socials, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, Marshmallow is now available on VOD, Amazon, Apple, Fandango, all of the typical VOD platforms. So check that out. And then I am on Instagram, so Daniel.DelPurgatorio. And you could follow along with stuff that I have going on. And hopefully we have another really cool project that we're working on right now in the genre that we've been talking about. It's really great, and hopefully you'll be able to hear more about that soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm now wishing for Cubicle starring Jocelyn Donahue and Michael Shannon.
Dream come true.
I know, right? But no, thank you so much for meeting with me today. It was a pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It was great.